So this summer when I was up at my typical flea market in Pulaski, New York, I came across this neat rounding hammer. And because I like tools and because I couldn't pass it up, I picked it up and brought it home with me. I think I paid more than I would usually pay for a hammer. But because it's a rounding hammer and it looks old, and I don't have a rounding hammer, and I don't believe I found any other axes that day, so further justification is to pick up something that I didn't need. But it's a cool one. So if you're not familiar with a rounding hammer, it's like a farrier or blacksmith's hammer, where one face is flat, which is actually just slightly domed, but flat face for cleaning up hammer marks, and then round face. This one here, you can see that's round, that's flat, and then the round face for actually moving the metal. Now I don't really do any blacksmithing. I've played around with like a brake drum forge a couple of times, but it'd be something I'd like to get more into in the future. And a hammer's a hammer, so yeah, you can never have enough of them. But the downside of this one is that the handle, haft, handle, whatever you want to call it, is broken and pretty badly warped. So if you see here, it's kind of got a bow to it. Now if it was just the bow, I'd probably deal with it, but if you can see, it's pretty badly chipped and cracked, and that crack migrates all the way down here. So chances are there's probably a bad overstrike. They kind of did that handle in, and the fit's not great up in the eye either. So I went to my local one of my local hardware stores. Thankfully, they carry house handles. Not all of the not house handles whole lineup, but as far as like hammer handles go, like smaller hatchet handles, ball peen hammers, framing hammers, they've got a pretty good selection there, and really pretty affordable too. I think this handle was under $5, and it's nice American hickory, grain orientation. Not that it really matters a super ton for this, as you can see, this. Maybe it does matter. This is actually a good example. This handle broke where there was run out, right? So you can see the growth rings of the wood right here, right? And this handle broke. Point a little bit easier with my fingers. So you see this handle broke right where those grain, or those growth rings, were kind of like daylighting on the handle. I don't know if it was just from abuse or warped, but because it was warped, or maybe it got stepped on, run over, who knows. But either way, this handle did break where it had run out. You can see the fibers that didn't break are where you've got that continuous grain, which is obviously way more important for an axe or a tool with a much heavier head, but it's still relevant. It's still a good visual demonstration of like what run out is and where you see it. So like at the point of each one of those growth rings, that's where you've got run out. Those layers want to like delaminate and lift up when they're overstressed. So that's why when you've got a striking implement, you do not want, ideally, you don't want those growth rings, at least with hickory. I believe that the rule of thumb's change once you start getting into other woods. But with hickory, you don't want those growth rings in the direction of the force that you're using. So, like I say, you're driving that hammer down, that handle flexes a little bit. It flexes, so those growth rings want to start delaminating, right? So and that's the logic behind it. That's the logic behind grain orientation. way too rambling for a quick hammer handle replacement video, but you get what you get. So, a nice little hammer. This is a blacksmith, call it a blacksmith handle, 14-inch. The eye size looks about right, which makes sense. It says it's a blacksmith handle. It should be. So, looks like it's the right size eye. Grain orientation is good enough for what it is. Yeah, it's not really any better than that one, but this one's straight and not broken, so we're gonna use this one. Maybe, depending on how I'm feeling, maybe I'll do a little ebonizing on this, just for the fun of it. Kind of an older head. Be kind of a fun way to give the hammer handle a little different look than rather just straight linseed oil. So yeah, get to it. Get on pulling this old head off, cleaning it up just a little bit. Not doing anything crazy. I'm not dressing the faces or anything like that, because I'm not blacksmithing with it. The worst thing I'm probably going to do is just use it to seat handles and axe heads. So yep, nothing crazy. I don't need super fine finishes on it. Not actually blacksmithing. Maybe in the future, if I ever get a forge set up and start playing around with that, I will. But for right now, it's just going to be a hammer for basic use of seating heads and maybe driving some wedges here and there. So, all right, get you set up in the vise, and we'll start getting this head liberated from this old handle. I think the reason that handle was getting stuck when I was trying to drive it out either way is because, as a good eye on any handle should have, it's got good taper. Almost like inside of this eye is an hourglass shape, right? It's got good taper going up to the top and good taper going out to the bottom. So as you drive the handle in from the bottom, it's wedged in, and when you drive the wedge in from the top, it's wedged in. So the narrowest point in the whole eye should be the very center of it. And if you can look in there and see, it looks like that's the case. So you can see a little better this way. There you go. That's a pretty good example. You can see that high point is really in the center there. So yeah, seems like a well-made head, hammer head. It looks old too. I didn't see any marking on it. So maybe it's, local blacksmith made, or who knows what, but yeah, cool one. Should be handy to have around the shop. Again, and if I ever actually pick up some blacksmithing as a hobby here or there, it'll be handy to have a rounding hammer. So one other thing is, it looks like this side of the eye was drifted just slightly off kilter, because that looks like it's, a degree or two off to the side. Whereas the bottom what I'm going to call the bottom. Looks more directly square. So do this at the bottom. This is the top. Hopefully, yeah. I'm hoping that'll come out the best. We'll see. I figure the top edges of the tongue will kind of twist and flex more with the wedge driving than having to like hang it slightly skewed. So that's one of the nice things about not having a stamp on it, is I can kind of pick either side as the top or bottom. So now that we've got our head cleaned up, we figured out kind of what orientation we want the eye to go in, or which side we want the top of the eye to be, just because of that slight variation with the drift. Yeah, so this will be the bottom. So because of that, I'm going to mark the side of the head. That's because I don't want to permanently mark it. I'm just going to throw a piece of tape on there. And just do some kind of marking that you can actually tell top from bottom. So we'll do a little arrow there. That'll help keep us kind of with the correct orientation towards, what's top, what is bottom, while we're getting this fit and hung. So next thing we're going to do is just kind of get this handle ready for shaping. So we need to pull the little staple here that came, they had it hung at the hardware store, and then kind of remove some of these stickers and whatnot. So I probably will not end up using this wedge. Really kind of looks like a pretty not great wedge, but hey, it's better than nothing. I'll probably end up cutting my own one out of some maple or some black locust, maybe some hickory, maybe cherry, who knows. We'll figure it out when we get there. We've got a lot of scraps in my my wedge bucket, so might find one that's already a decent size. Try to peel this off. Hopefully it doesn't leave too much of a residue. I've had pretty decent luck with house handles, so I think this is mostly just like a wax coating that they throw on there. It's not like a thick lacquer, so maybe it is a kind of a poly, but I shape it up enough that it doesn't really matter, especially when you're using the Shinto rasp. It comes off pretty easy and quick. All right, so we'll get the camera moved and chucked up in the vise so we can start fitting this. And then one of the other things that I will do is determine which side the arrow is going to be on. Doesn't seem like it has any preference right now, so maybe we'll just mark it. There we go. So that way we can always keep these orientations, always keep that the same, so that you're not, accidentally spinning the handle around or getting the head upside down, and then you're kind of chasing your tail with the fit. So, and this is a good thing to do when you're doing hanging double bit axes too. Just kind of keep the orientation the same. When you're doing single bit axes, it's kind of hard to mess up, but not impossible.
Can't see it from here, but that was absolutely terrible hang. Like, the fit of the handle inside the eye is perfectly fine, but that wedge was not nearly wide enough. The taper on that eye is just crazy. So, black walnut, or black locust wedge is in there good. I just pounded the hell out of it with that 3-pound hammer. I don't know. It's a terrible hang. It really is. But I'm also just tempted to leave it because it is a hammer, and if it ever comes loose, I'll just rehang it. So maybe this will be a little bit of an experiment on how sloppy of a job it can be while still remain functional. Man, that gap bothers me though. You know, bring it a little closer. That is terrible. The taper was just, this handle, or this head, had so much taper on it though. I thought that was going to be a wide enough wedge. I didn't measure. I was just using a scrap wedge that I had kind of left over from before, but yep. We'll see. We'll think on it. I'm just cutting it. This isn't going at this handle, or this hammer isn't going to anyone but myself. Obviously, it's mine. It's my personal one. So we'll do a little bit of experiment with it of how messy of a hang can you get away with. The parts that are making contact inside that have good compression. It's just maybe I'll throw a little step wedge in there. Not cross grain like you usually would, but maybe I'll throw it in on the side that needs that gap filled up. Throw it in between the center wedge and the other one. Like I said, this hang's already not pretty, so whatever. We'll tighten it up enough that it'll stay functional. It's funny because I really almost never use these. Yeah, that is ugly. But so ugly. The wedges fit nicely, it just wasn't nearly wide enough. So the eye on that hand, that can't talk here. The eye on that hammer just has a crazy amount of taper. All right, so throw a little oil on this handle, see how that ebonizing came out. My goal wasn't to get it super dark, just kind of give it a little, just because this head is so old, or I suspect it to be so old, just give it a little bit older of a look than it's brand new hickory. So Whether it achieved it, I don't know. I don't hate the look so far though, so